The rise of Caitlin Clark, the Midwestern kid whose long-range ambition rewrote women's basketball history. If this story moves you, hit like and subscribe. It helps more people find this journey. In a quiet corner of eastern Iowa, life moved at the pace of farmers markets, high school Friday nights, and long summers. West Branch offered little in the way of glitter, but an enormous playground for imagination. On cracked rims behind houses and in school gymnasiums, a young competitor began treating every dribble like a promise. That early dedication became the foundation for something much larger than hometown glory. Family framed the first chapter. Parents who traded comfort for opportunity, brothers who kept pickup games honest, and high school coaches who saw raw instinct and taught structure. Together, they shaped an athlete who learned to stay calm when crowds grew loud. Childhood drills became rituals, repetition before sunrise. Free throws after homework, a relentless curiosity about how to bend the ball into the net from farther and farther away. Talent alone never explains greatness. The environment that nurtured the habit of excellence did. High school proved a proving ground. Performances that once mattered only to classmates suddenly drew regional attention. The long-range accuracy that later became a signature move first turned heads in state tournaments. The knack for reading defenses and creating for teammates unveiled leadership beyond scoring. Local press began to call the kid a prodigy. Opponents prepared differently. Scouts scribbled notes and college coaches called. Signals that a small-town player might be on the verge of breaking out. College recruitment carried a new kind of pressure. Choosing a program mattered. A place to refine craft, to showcase on national television, to learn how to be both a scorer and creator. The decision to join a Big Ten program became a seismic moment, not only for the individual but for a community ready to root hard for one of its own. That school would later become the stage on which a generation would witness an ascent few predicted and many would celebrate. Talent met timing during the early college seasons. The newcomer adapted to the speed, found chemistry with teammates, and turned stadium noise into energy. What felt like destiny to some began as disciplined evolution. Shot mechanics adjusted, court vision sharpened, a mental toughness forged in late-game situations. Each practice serendipitously fed into bigger nights, and larger audiences followed. Where many players peak locally, the subject of our story expanded the playbook. Long-distance attempts became a staple, not a gimmick. Courted defenders found themselves in a chess match with a mind that anticipated 2 moves ahead. The label, small-town kid, grew smaller as national networks requested interviews, social feeds filled with highlight reels, and a new kind of attention arrived, one that would change the sports audience forever. This first chapter ends with a quiet recognition. Greatness rarely appears overnight. What looks like a sudden arrival is almost always the product of countless unnoticed repetitions. When hometown courts gave way to packed arenas and national broadcasts, the athlete who left those quiet practices behind carried with them the memory of each early sacrifice. That memory would remain the secret engine driving every later buzzer beater and viral moment. The second chapter dives into the habits, relationships, and defining games that turned a promising shooter into an elite floor general. Development began before cameras arrived. Practice routines evolved into rituals, footwork drills that honed balance, ball handling sequences to create space, and repetition of long-range shots that became automatic under pressure. Training partners forced improvements by making workouts competitive. Coaches emphasized fundamentals, but encouraged creative risk-taking, a combination that allowed instincts to flourish within structure. On film, the mechanics looked effortless. Behind closed doors, they were relentless. Mentorship mattered. High school mentors and college coaches offered more than drills. They provided context, lessons about leadership, handling scrutiny, and building a playmaking identity reshaped raw scoring into a complete game. Mentors also taught silence in loss and humility in praise, attributes that grew valuable as fame followed. Teammates became collaborators, not competitors, and together they learned to convert individual brilliance into team victories. Breakout nights arrived like climaxes in a novel. Performances that once read as flashes of talent matured into full chapters, long-distance barrages, court-spanning assists, and clutch free throws. Those nights produced viral clips, yes, but more importantly, they established a pattern. When the game tightened, the player at the center executed. Opposing coaches adjusted scouting reports, but instincts and adaptability often provided the answer. Academics and personal growth balanced the on-court ascent. The talented athlete in our story prioritized studies and community, proving the ability to focus across arenas, classrooms, press rooms, and charity events. That balance humanized the public figure, making the victories resonate like communal triumphs rather than individual accolades. Hometown parades and school assemblies were as meaningful as national headlines, and that grounded perspective kept purpose clear. Pressure tested resolve. As audiences swelled, expectations rose in tandem. Negative headlines and online trolls attempted to define worth by a single miss or an off night. Yet the discipline instilled in earlier years, where each mistake was treated as feedback rather than failure, allowed for growth. The reaction to criticism made the narrative more than statistics. It turned a competitor into an example for younger athletes learning to navigate fame. Transition to college stardom also brought outsized opportunities. Invitations to national broadcasts, features in major outlets, and endorsement interests arrived with a velocity few players experience. The ability to manage spotlight developed into a skill unto itself, requiring a support system that could preserve focus on the court while negotiating the responsibilities of public life. That system, built by family and trusted advisors, provided the bandwidth to pursue both excellence and influence. This chapter frames the ascension as a blend of raw talent, disciplined routine, and relationships that provided moral and technical guidance. That trifecta turned potential into signature performances and made the name recognizable far beyond hometown lines. This chapter lays bare the nights that changed everything, the games that turned a hometown hero into a national phenomenon, the stat lines that rewrote record books, and the moments that made millions stand up and take notice. A single contest can alter the arc of a career. For Caitlin Clark, one of those nights arrived in front of millions when a routine scoreboard became a ledger of history. A performance against a top-ranked rival pushed a lifetime of accumulation past one of college basketball's greatest names, producing a moment that textbooks will reference for years. That evening was not only a personal milestone, but a cultural marker, a Midwestern player claiming the NCAA Division I scoring crown, an achievement that bridged generations and invited comparisons that once felt unimaginable. Record chasing became a season-long story. Long before national headlines, a relentless sequence of practices and high-pressure attempts had built a level of comfort from distance. The long-range barrage that once looked like a highlight reel quirk transformed into a statistical avalanche. Conference totals, single-season three-point marks, and career tallies dissolved prior benchmarks as a new standard emerged. The numerical proof did more than decorate resume pages. It forced defensive game plans to evolve across the country. Beyond pure scoring, another body of work stunned analysts: playmaking paired with scoring volume. A rare combination of point production and assist accumulation created a stat line not previously seen in Division I history. That blend, elite scoring with elite facilitation, reframed conversations about modern guards, proving that volume shooters could also command an unselfish, team-first identity. Those unprecedented career totals cemented a legacy that was both prolific and complete. Certain single-game displays read like cinematic acts. Even when coverage saturated sports networks, a few contests jumped beyond routine acclaim. Barrage after barrage from beyond the arc, late-game orchestration in hostile arenas, and sequences where pressure bent but did not break composure. One outing that tied a rookie record for threes in a WNBA context echoed earlier collegiate nights, reminding fans that clutch range had translated to the professional stage. Such performances offered proof of transferability, the ability to take college electricity and sustain it under intensified scrutiny. Milestones carried emotional weight because context amplified them. Small-town spectators who once cheered from bleachers watched from living rooms and public plazas as former local rivalries became national debates. Family members who had kept score in paper notebooks found themselves quoted in major outlets. Mentors who taught fundamentals were now cited as the architects behind record-breaking mechanics. The human tally, the sacrifices, missed social nights, and early morning repetition made each headline feel less like fortune and more like the inevitable result of devotion. Numbers alone cannot narrate the pressure behind those nights. Defensive adjustments aimed specifically at stopping long-range attempts created isolation moments where decision-making mattered as much as skill. At crunch time, reading the defense and choosing between a contested triple, a drive, or a dish required a calm cultivated in countless closed-door repetitions. The ability to select the right play under loud scrutiny became its own record, an unrecorded stat of composure that seasons cannot measure. The ripple effects extended beyond personal legacy. Stadiums that previously saw modest attendance began to fill, television ratings spiked, younger players began modeling shooting mechanics and court awareness on those viral sequences. The sport received newfound attention from audiences that historically had not tuned in, altering the economics and perception of women's basketball nationwide. What started as individual excellence expanded into a cultural phenomenon that rippled through recruiting boards, ticket sales, and social feeds. Critics predictably surfaced alongside celebration. Questions about sustainability, defensive adjustments, and the transition to professional schemes created debate. Yet every time skepticism peaked, another defining night quieted doubt. A contested buzzer beater, an unselfish assist in a packed arena, or a numbered line that moved a career total farther from its nearest rival. The narrative of doubt versus proof became a recurring subplot, but evidence often tilted toward persistence and adaptation. Historic nights are rarely the work of a single moment. They are the composite of countless invisible ones. When the crowd rose, when commentators fell silent in awe, what remained was a life of routine translated into spectacle. That is where records transform into legacy, when personal toil becomes public inspiration, and when statistics turn into stories that younger players will tell for years. This final chapter unwraps the long view. How Caitlin Clark altered a sport, reshaped opportunity, and left an emotional imprint on fans who watched a small-town athlete become the spark that ignited a new era. When a player moves from hometown courts to national conversation, impact arrives in many forms. The basketball resume includes headline achievements, #1 draft selection that marked the official start of a professional career, and a college points total that rewrote record books. But the true legacy reaches farther than trophies. Those objective milestones created gateways, larger TV audiences, fuller arenas, and lucrative name, image, and likeness partnerships that changed perception about what women's basketball could earn and mean. Beyond numbers, cultural shifts unfolded. Markets that once scheduled weekend doubleheaders began promoting single games around marquee matchups. Local businesses stocked commemorative items, and youth programs reported record signups as a new generation traced free throws in neighborhood gyms. The phenomenon went beyond fandom. It became an economic current that transformed game nights into communal rituals. Studies and industry analyses later quantified that influence, showing an outsized contribution to league revenue and projecting potential growth measured in the hundreds of millions. Off-court influence also rewrote expectations for athlete earnings and visibility. College-era endorsement deals, followed by professional sponsorships, demonstrated how marketability and performance could combine to build platforms previously unavailable to many female athletes. brands that once hesitated to invest in women's sports moved quickly. Partnerships broadened from regional campaigns to national commercials, expanding both income and cultural recognition. Those deals did more than line pockets. They normalized serious financial opportunities for future talent. Personal stories stitched through the public milestones made the changes human. Fans remember phone calls from parents after a buzzer beater, old high school coaches smiling in background interviews, and teammates describing late-night workouts that felt ordinary at the time. Those intimate memories converted statistics into narratives. A paper notebook of box scores became a family heirloom. A faded practice jersey turned into a museum piece for younger players to see and believe. The emotional currency of those moments created the kind of inspiration that textbooks cannot capture. Criticism and conversation followed notoriety, as is inevitable when attention concentrates. Analysts debated sustainability of performance under new defensive schemes. Social commentators weighed the price of fame, and competitors adjusted tactics. But each objection added pressure that proved useful. Opposing plans forced evolution, commentary sharpened focus, and skepticism provided motivation for continued growth. The ongoing dialogue became part of the athlete's education, teaching resilience when headlines were kind and resolve when they were not. Youth Impact offers the most enduring thread. Clinics filled with aspiring guards practicing step-backs and range, parents signing up children for year-round development, and coaches adapting curricula to include more shot creation and court vision. The pipeline shifted. Young athletes no longer measured success only by local accolades, but by the possibility of national stages. That aspirational change matters because it alters the sport's future talent pool, widening access and ambition in equal measure. Legacy also includes responsibility. With broader platforms come expectations to speak, to champion causes, and to represent communities. Community initiatives, scholarship funds, and public appearances became extensions of influence, demonstrating how athletic success could be redirected into social good. Those efforts blurred the line between competitor and civic figure, reinforcing the idea that athletic platforms can and should be used to uplift others. As for what arrives next, continuity matters more than climax. Career arcs bend and twist, injuries, growth, and new chapters all play a role. The record books and economic studies provide markers. But the real test will be in sustained contribution, mentoring younger players, continuing to innovate on court, and helping maintain the increased visibility that opened doors for others. The long-term narrative will be judged by whether the moment sparked lasting change in audience habits, investment behavior, and youth participation. When the final buzzer of this chapter sounds, the echo remains. Fans who watched from backyard rims to sold-out arenas carry memories that become part of their personal histories. Those stories, told and retold, will continue to inspire. The Iowa native's journey from small-town practices to national stages stands as proof that devotion, undergirded by community, can generate more than accolades. It can alter a sport's trajectory and open possibilities for countless others. This closes the tale of beginnings transformed into movement. Thank you for reading this series on Caitlin Clark, a narrative of grit, records, and the ripple that follows extraordinary effort.